was raised by my grandmother until the age of about 5 or 6. And the only my standard, or I guess my impression of love, was the bond that her and I had. So that's what I would seek out, right? And because I was getting it from someone that was so much older, what did I do? As I grew up, I started seeking it from those who are older. And when you don't see it, or when you see a version of it in the household, because I have a couple of friends that similar upbringing where like, man, how does my mom and dad stay together? Right? There's all this
Mhm.
going on, and they make it work 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. And here we are, flash forward to you to our generation, right?
Mhm.
We want the love, we want the fairy tale, we want this stuff, but then we realize that we're giving up the practicality that our parents and our grandparents had, where they would say, okay, we don't necessarily have this burning desire. Some of them do, but we don't have this overwhelming burning desire of love. But together we're able to raise a child. Together we're able to uphold a household. Together we're able to do these things. So I guess looking back and hearing what you're telling me and your own experience, is it that when it comes to relationships, now we just want the love, but we're getting it from sources that doesn't make sense because we have certain things that we need to work on. That person has certain things that they need to work on. But because we say, quote unquote, we love each other, we don't ever work on each other together.
Mm. From what I've seen, it is kind of true that you in the end find someone to almost replace the things that you feel like you need, whether it's how you want to feel. But sometimes I think life has this very sick humor where they kind of give you exactly what you need so you actually can overcome your past, you know? Because even if you don't consciously want to pick that type of person or that kind of dynamic, unconsciously you're like pulled towards it. So before you know it, you're in that same dynamic that it kind of goes either two ways. One is you repeat exactly what you were dreading or trying to get away from, or you disliked a part of your upbringing or your past or some like however that relationship dynamic was growing up, that you do the exact opposite. So you almost go in the extreme the other way. So for example, if you grew up in a household where maybe one of your parents cheated, it could be that you end up with someone who does often cheat on you, or you go completely other way where you're like very jealous and you're very trying to hold them back in, and it's like the opposite reaction of it. So I believe that there's so much healing to be done in especially these intimate relationships. Why? Because these romantic relationships are behind closed doors. And more or less, we let our guard down and we relax a little bit, and we're more of ourselves here. We're putting less of a front. And, you know, whether you like it or not, when you go to work, you're that person. You go to work and it's almost like you're that whole commute and putting that clothing on. It gets you into that mode, and by the time you say hi to your colleagues, you're that work version of you. Or when you go out with your
Absolutely.
buddies, you're like, oh, getting ready, and you're like ready to have fun and be social. You have different aspects of you. But when you come home, that's your norm, right? So that norm means that whatever is still inside, that you maybe didn't address, and it's still kind of there, or parts of you that you feel like you just never got from whoever you wanted love from, it's still there. It's still trying to get it. If not from you, then from someone else. So in that environment, in a way, that's why with our loved ones, it's where we have that love-hate relationship where it's very powerful. You can bring out the best in each other, or you hear this all this time that, the spouse brings out the worst in each other. So why is that, right? And I think it's because those deep-rooted problems, at least for me and my husband, we worked on ourselves, self-development stuff for so long, but those blind spots were still in these romantic, intimate relationships with our loved ones behind closed doors, where we could hide, where we could keep up these toxic patterns.
And I was telling someone today, that's where we're most vulnerable, right? Like when you're in a relationship that has intimacy on varying levels and a number of levels, that's where you're vulnerable because you're not only opening up your mind, your body, and your
Mm.
soul to that person. And you raised a good point as we're seeking love, because that's what we're built. Human beings are built that way. One of the worst punishments you can ever do to a human is to do what? Isolate them away from everyone else, right? In the jail system, you see a lot of that. And I think there's so much work that we have to do on ourselves before we can enter into a relationship. And for you, and I know you touched on it, were you surprised how much work you had to do? Or was this something that you always felt that you're anticipating because you're becoming more self aware of
Mm.
yourself as you entered this relationship with your now husband?
Mm. I think I was surprised by how bad it could get. I really was. I really was. Because, like, self-image, right? I saw myself as a healer, someone loving, someone caring, good community member, good daughter, good friend, a good wife, all of these things. I found myself to be like, I tried to be as good of a person as I can be everywhere I went. But I was really surprised at, I mean, I had to do. We actually reached out for help at some point because we hit a breaking point within our marriage. We could not resolve it on our own anymore. Not at that point. So at the lowest point, it was as if it was routine to hurt one another. And after doing work, there was one particular retreat that we did. It was 7 days long. We were separate, but we would come together about the relationship we needed to, and we met again in the end. It was with the same practitioner. In that process, I really had to face what I had done, like my personal responsibility for where the relationship had went at that point. And it was not nice. It was a lot of work, and it's one of the most devastating things to truly face, the fact that you're hurting someone you love. I mean, no one in the bottom of their hearts ever wants to do that.